Colorado kids who need devices to learn from home are running into an issue with international sanctions. The school district here has been key in warning schools across America about what's happening. Overlooked frontline workers, who many Coloradans would be lost without. Denver's mayor directs a new legal approach to rioters. A viral story about a trashed mail sorting machine in Colorado needed a whole lot more context. And where you can go to escape the smoke. Spoiler alert, it'll be more than one tank of gas. That's next. The education of some school kids in Colorado is being held hostage right now at the border. Chromebooks ordered by school districts around America cannot get into the U.S. from China because of sanctions. Carefully laid out remote learning plans are all just prisoners here of their own device. Here's Steve Steger.
As if planning for a school year amid COVID wasn't a cluster enough, Laura Hussein will tell you her last few months have been nonstop.
But it was a very wrenching situation.
Hussein runs DPS's My Tech department, tasked now with making sure there are enough laptops to go around for kiddos to learn online. Back in April, DPS put in an order for 12,500 Chromebooks from Lenovo to help meet the need.
We heard in late July, right around the time that we expected those devices to start coming in, that we would not have access to those devices.
The result of foreign policy.
The U.S. had put sanctions against 11 Chinese manufacturing companies for suspected human rights abuses.
A parts supplier for Lenovo was included in that, meaning any computers ordered by schools were being held up by customs. Lenovo told DPS, and DPS spread the word around the state and around the country.
So we could come together and try to kind of figure this out together.
Other districts might not have known that had it not been for Denver.
I immediately called my vendor and he confirmed something of the sort.
Kerry Harrelson is the IT director of East Grand Schools in Granby. He says DPS's warning helped him realize the 350 plus computers he ordered were being held up too. His team had to get creative, repurposing some old computers that were set to be scrapped.
We're stretched thin, but we've got it covered for sure.
DPS had to find and repair as many used computers as they could, and they asked families with a personal device if they'd be willing to turn theirs in to meet the need.
It literally was a scramble in the last few days to make sure that every student had access to a device.
Now you saw there at the end, DPS just got a shipment. While some of the other districts had enough computers to wait until Lenovo could get that supplier issue fixed with that one certain model, DPS had to change their order and buy different models. In the end, it cost the district about $113,000 more to get those 12,500 laptops here on time. Still, had they not negotiated this and then hadn't gotten out and they hadn't figured this out, the whole world might have been in a mad scramble right before the beginning of the school year, Kyle.
Yeah, good on DPS. See, I'm trying to picture a situation where some rural school district is scrambling without that kind of notification. That could have been real rough.
Yeah, it was interesting. They said as soon as they got that information, they felt like they needed to share it not only with the state, but they sent it out to a lot of other districts who had been waiting for their shipments, but didn't necessarily know why they were waiting. Then everybody starts calling their supplier. They're like, oh, that's it. That's the reason why. So now they could start to get things sorted out.
Thanks to Steve Steger for an interesting story and a very interesting jacket. Our positivity rate in Colorado, when we're talking COVID-19 tests come back positive, it took a step in the wrong direction. Yesterday, we were a little under 4%, bumps our 7-day average for positivity to 2.9%. We're still well under what public health experts recommend, but it's up from where we were 2 weeks ago. There are 137 people currently in Colorado's hospitals with confirmed COVID-19 cases, and that's just steady as she goes. Our 7-day average drops a bit to 148 per day. That number's been on the decline for the last month or so. The COVID-19 pandemic has redefined thankfulness. Doctors and nurses, boy, they jumped up near the top for so many. Our Mark Salinger shows us another profession in Colorado also deserving of our gratitude.
When we talk about the heroes of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's time we acknowledge everyone who works inside hospitals like this.
It takes a team to take care of a patient.
People like Melissa Villarreal.
And yes, what you hear mostly is doctors and nurses.
And Danya Davis.
One thing that I'm pretty sure made us come and find strength was the love that we have for each other and the love that we have for our patients.
Danya and Melissa are medical interpreters at the Banner Health North Colorado Medical Center in Greeley. For months, they've stood at the bedsides of people infected with COVID-19 and helped doctors translate diagnosis and treatments for patients and families who don't speak English.
The majority of our COVID patients were Spanish-speaking only.
There are signs outside the hospital that say heroes work here. Through long shifts and the threat of infection, Danya and Melissa have shown you don't need to be a doctor to be someone's hero.
We were holding tablets and we were, if the patient couldn't hear, we would tell them, your sister said this, screaming. and we try to make it the best possible for both ends.
One translation, one smile, and one recovered patient at a time.
It was busy and it was scary.
Danya and Melissa tore down a language barrier and helped fight the virus.
Remind them over and over that no matter what they needed, we were there for them.
And while Danya and Melissa say that they do still work with some COVID patients, they say the hospital's almost back to normal now. Kyle, that goes along with the trends that we're seeing with far less patients being in hospitals right now than, say, April and May.
And everybody, Mark, just wants to pass along the thanks and point out somebody else that we should be grateful to these days.
Absolutely. They say that they're not the only ones who don't necessarily get all the attention that perhaps that they deserve. They also wanted to shout out to the janitorial staff and the therapists as well, who have been working right alongside the doctors and nurses in the hospital.
All right, Mark Salinger reporting tonight from the sprawling acreage of the Salinger estate. Thank you, Mark. Hey, if you did not get the memo, Denver Mayor Michael Hancock is mad after Saturday's riots in the city and the people who destroyed property. The city attorney did get the memo. It was a memo from the mayor today saying that he wants damage to public and private property tallied up, and he wants the city attorney to prioritize civil prosecutions of those rioters to win restitution money. Not sure if there's a whole lot of change to be shook out of the pockets of those who came out dressed in black for battle with police and with an eye to destruction Saturday night. Colorado law does require restitution in criminal convictions. Anybody convicted would have to show a good faith effort to pay back. The Denver District Attorney Beth McCann told us that she will prosecute any cases that come her way. A number of prominent Democrats across America have been sharing a photo that came from Colorado, a photo of a mail sorting machine trashed in a dumpster outside a post office in Grand Junction. The now viral claim is that that is a new mail sorting machine taken out of service to slow down the mail, including ballots. But there is no proof just beyond this picture, and the Postal Service flatly says it is not true. USPS spokesman James Boxer told Mark Salinger that this was actually an old machine. It was sent to Colorado for repairs. That wasn't possible. It was never installed, and it was eventually scrapped. So wasn't in service and got pulled out, they say, wasn't brand new. They say this machine also sorts magazine-size mail, which currently all of Colorado's magazine-size mail is sorted through Denver. Postal Service insists that there's no disruption on so-called flat service these days. Listen, we are willing to check out any and all claims about funky business with the Postal Service in Colorado, but we do ask you not to share wild claims that are not backed up by any evidence. Hey, speaking of those, Colorado congressional candidate Lauren Boebert is one of two QAnon supporters, candidates for Congress, invited to the White House for President Trump's big speech this week. QAnon, you'll recall, is the conspiracy theory that President Trump will soon round up and execute his political opponents who are satanic cannibals that drink baby blood. Boebert shared on Twitter today that she's honored to go to Washington to witness the president's acceptance speech for the RNC. Boebert took out Congressman Scott Tipton in a Republican primary to represent western and southern Colorado. We've talked about her QAnon, expressed support for QAnon in the past. President Trump last week made his first public comments about QAnon. He praised its supporters for liking him and loving America. QAnon's been described by the FBI as a potential domestic terror threat. Time's running out, and Colorado's arcades are almost out of tokens.
It's not looking good. The way business is down, I don't see as lasting too much longer.
They're making a direct appeal to the governor. A next viewer appeals to us for any path away from the smoke. Don't go west, young man. And if you go east, be prepared to go and 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 go. Our next question is about the ballot drop boxes Colorado uses for elections. Donald J. Trump asks on Twitter, so now the Democrats are using mail drop boxes, which are a voter security disaster. Among other things, they make it possible for a person to vote multiple times. Also, who controls them? Are they placed in Republican or Democrat areas? They are not COVID sanitized. A big fraud. Not the first time that we have answered a voter security question from that gentleman, but it's an important question. Ballot drop boxes, like the ones used in Colorado, do not allow somebody to vote more than once. You still just have your one ballot, which is mailed to you, then cross-referenced with your signature on file when you return your one ballot. Individual county clerks, Democrats and Republicans across our state, control those ballot drop box locations. Just today it was announced that there are going to be 42 new ones this election cycle, more than 350 total. State law requires that each of them is monitored with 24/7 video surveillance in case somebody tries to tamper with the boxes. Now, it is correct that the ballot drop boxes are not sanitized for COVID-19 like most anything else you touch out and around these days. But if you have ever used a ballot drop box, and that is how 3/4 of Colorado's ballots are returned securely, you just slide your ballot into the slot. If you're rubbing your paws all over the drop box, you're using it wrong. Quick follow-up to the next question that we tackled last night. A viewer wondering when the wildfire smoke is going to clear away from the Front Range. And sorry to tell you, but meteorologists think that it is going to stick around at least through the end of September. Viewer named Chris wrote in with a follow-up asking where to go to get away from the smoke. Go to the mountains, go to New Mexico, go east somewhere. Well, you really can't find respite from the smoke anywhere in Colorado these days. Our meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen says there are some mountain ranges that are not close to the fires that are seeing less smoke. But you know when you're up in the high country how the stagnant air settles down into the mountain valleys in the morning time? That can be one of the worst places to be when there's some smoke in the air because it just sits there. You really have to leave Colorado to get relief. Next graphics editor, Jeff, is out today, so we had to improvise this sucker. But here's the deal. You don't want to go to New Mexico because there are fires burning there, too. Don't want to go west. California is the issue there. You got to go east to find clear skies. And Corey says that smoke is being reported as far east as Kansas City. So you'll need to cross the mighty Mississippi, mighty there on the map, to completely escape the smoke. Let's just take a moment and just bask in the beauty of America. What a majestic nation. Bit of good news on the smoke and haze front around here. Corey Reppenhagen says that the wind will shift in the next couple of days and it will clear up parts of Colorado's eastern plains, at least temporarily.
Smoke, haze, and for the third day in a row, 98 degrees. We just missed the record by one. Triple-digit highs on the far eastern plains. We've got 48 more hours to deal with this, and then we've got a break, a shift in the pattern that will allow for more moisture to come in. A couple of sprinkles down around Parker and Castle Rock tonight. More wind and lightning than anything else. Fire managers watching these storms very closely. The moisture is very limited tonight. We've got a 10 to 20% chance of foothill storms again tomorrow afternoon, but it's Friday. Cooler weather and a good chance of rain. Our low tonight, 64 with partly cloudy skies. Hot highs back near 100 tomorrow. Again, 2 days near 100 and then a cooling trend. Rain from storms Friday and then temperatures in the 70s and lower 80s the first part of next week.
On in Colorado, but only if you're gambling.
They can sanitize buttons on a casino game. We could sanitize buttons on an arcade machine.
As indicated by their commercial, you can gamble again in person in Colorado, but you can't play Pac-Man. State's arcades would love the same treatment as its casinos before it's game over for them.
We have all the classics, Galaga, Pac-Man, Frogger, and we have 20 craft beers on tap. My name is Jason Ungate, and I own and operate the Tabletop Tap.
I'm Greg Maring, and I'm an owner and manager at Tilt Pinball in Louisville, Colorado.
So my name is Brandon Osha. I own and operate Akibar Arcade.
Our entire business model is based off of touching arcade buttons or joysticks or touching board games, and COVID-19 has just completely wrecked that.
It's pretty dire.
By state mandate, we're not allowed to have our arcade games on, which basically means I've got all these blank screens sitting in my bar and all these arcade cabinets that have no power on right now.
I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't be able to open and be able to open in a safe way. If they can sanitize buttons on a casino game, we could sanitize buttons on an arcade machine.
You know, we understand if everything's shut down, but, you know, to have things like casinos open and not, you can't play Pac-Man, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right now, I think we'll be lucky if we get through the end of September.
I think most people will be closed by the end of the year permanently if we don't get it open within the next 2 months.
I would just ask that the governor look into some of these overlooked businesses where we're ready and willing to address the need for sanitation and cleanliness, but we're just being left out in the rain right now.
We're getting eaten for the dots. We're getting smushed.
Story was told through the lens of our photojournalist, Corky Scholl. A spokesperson for the governor told us this afternoon that the more people, quote, touch shared services, the less safe it is in terms of disease transmission. Yep. Same could be said for those open casinos. Hey, ice cream can get my 2-year-old daughter to do anything. Maybe that's how we convince people to socially distance. Picture proof of that concept and your feedback next. Every day, Coloradans are proving to anti-maskers that it is not at all difficult to show just the tiniest bit of care for your neighbors. Love this next example. It is an ice cream social distance in Highlands Ranch over the weekend. Family bought ice cream, asked everybody to mask up, put tape on the sidewalk to mark off the distances, and then invited all the neighbors to come and visit. See, this is not difficult when you try. Not difficult when you try. Thanks to Lori for sending in those photos. Blue writes in tonight on our continuing coverage about ballot security myths. I don't know how you're not shouting out the answer to that voter security question. If I were you, there would have been eye rolling and profanity. Blue, I'm a professional, so the profanity is on the inside. Amanda notes, next seems especially feisty tonight. Amanda, we need more feist. There will be more feist. Expect more feist going forward. Michael says, so have you lost the weight that you initially put on during the first few months of COVID? You're looking thinner. Well, Michael, thank you very much. Flattery will get you everywhere. No, I have not. I've not lost my pandemic / pregnancy sympathy weight. Not one bit. We just moved the camera up about 6 inches each night. It's currently dangling about 6 inches from the ceiling right now. We'll see you next time.